Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, guys. I have the pleasure to host everybody for this new continuous testing meetup online. I'm Aurelian, I'm supported by Severin, and I want first of all to thanks our sponsor, which are Source Labs, To Amusement, and Trending. And I remember to everyone our website, www.continuoustestingmeetup.com. We also have the meetup if you want to reach us, and we have a Slack space.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, so today we have the pleasure to host Vitaly, which will let us know more about dog fooding, heating our own cooking for quality assurance.
Yes, thank you so much for hosting me again. I love you all. Right, so I will start sharing my screen now, right?
Yep.
And here is my presentation. And yes, my talk is called Dog Fooding, Eating Your Own Cooking for Quality Assurance. And one of my friends had me a nice picture drawn for this. The origin of the word dog fooding is quite strange because it's a verb created from a noun created from a verb. But basically, it's the process or the culture where you are the first user of what you create, of the products you create. And yes, my name is Vitaly Sharabatov. I've been in the IT for almost 23 years. I've been doing 13 years of JavaScript development. Then I went to engineering management positions, and now I'm developer advocate at Case. And why do I want to talk about dog fooding? Well, I believe that when we work, we spend more time at work than we spend at home. I believe that this time should be valuable, that this time should be spent on something that changes the world to a better place. And for us, I think it's very important for us to be proud for what we're doing and to understand if our products actually do change the world around us. And so what dog fooding has to do with quality? First, we need to start with the definitions. There are multiple definitions for quality, but I love two from the ISO standards. The first one is from ISO 9000, which says that quality is a degree to which a set of inherent characteristics of a product fulfills certain requirements. There is also ISO 25000 standard for software quality, which says that quality is a capability of a software product to satisfy stated and implied needs when used under certain conditions. So essentially, from those two definitions, we can derive a very simple one, that a quality is just a match between what is desired and what is produced. So if I am to produce an axe for a lumberjack, I have to listen to him to understand what he wants. And he might just say, I want a strong axe. Or if I am to produce a pair of gloves, boxing gloves for the boxer, I have to listen to the boxer to hear what he wants. And he might just say, I want good 14 ounces gloves. So what they say is just information. We need to grasp this information. We need to create a good product. We need to perfectly understand this information. And one of the definitions of information is that it's merely interpretation of desires. As this lumberjack or boxer say they want something, they just express their desires. They just express what they want. And what's important about the information is that it is both explicit and implicit. So whenever a lumberjack says that X metal should have certain characteristics, like it should be heat tempered to avoid splintering and breakage when he hits the wood, he also might have something implicit, some implicit information, like he might forget to say that the axe handle has to have a good grip even when the handle is wet. Or he might just say that the axe should be comfortable to use. And this comfortable to use is very implicit. You can't properly understand what comfortable is. So implicit, by the definition, is understood but not expressed. And explicit is clearly expressed. When you're working with software, when you're building software, you all want to have as much explicit information as possible. You need requirements, you need user stories, you need test cases, you need this and that. You strive to get as much information explicit as possible so that you can easily validate if what you're building is good or not. But not everything can be explicit. It is not possible to convert all implicit information to explicit because we just want something which is good for us. We want a good axe. What does this good mean? It might mean 1,000 things. And if you try to make all the characteristics of the axe explicit, you might end up with a pile of paper like that. If you had experience working with governmental contracts, you might know how big the requirement specification is. It's seriously sometimes thousands of pieces of paper where everything is written down, which slows us, of course, because first you need to make all the information explicit, you need to list it all, then you need to make the product, and then you need to validate if this product actually satisfies all those requirements, all this explicit information. But the problem is that our language is ambiguous. When I say the chair is comfortable, it is not fully possible to make this information explicit. You can measure the angle of the sitting place. You can measure this and that, and yet the person might say this chair is comfortable and this chair is not. And additionally, what's even more important, more interesting, is that the more links we have in the information passing chain. So if you, Aurelian, tell me, I need a comfy chair, and I kind of understand what you mean by comfy chair, but then I tell it to my mom, Aurelian wants a comfy chair. She will understand it in a very different context because she's older than you, she has her own habits of sitting, etc. So the more links in this information passing chain, the more information is lost. This is very important for us. As I've said, the language is ambiguous. Try to figure out what comfy or pleasant is. Or this example on the image is the Chinese whisper, so the broken telephone game, where you say something and the person says to the next one what he thought he heard from you, and the next person says to the next one what he thought he heard from you and you and you, and so the information is lost. So we end up with having information loss, and we end up having no clear way to specify all the information, because some information will still be left implicit. But what's interesting, that it is possible to learn and feel the implicit information. When you are the lumberjack, when you actually chop wood on a daily basis, when you are the user of that axe, you can say, yeah, the axe is good. Or when you're a professional boxer, you can easily understand that the pair of gloves you've been provided is not good, is not comfortable. So the best way to understand and feel this implicit information, and therefore reduce the information loss, and therefore be able to understand what's needed and to provide what's needed, is to be the user of the product you are building. As I'm saying, the lumberjack knows which axe is good, and the boxer knows which gloves are good. It's easy for them. And another thing quite peculiar is that if you never chopped any wood, and if you come to the place to a bar, let's say, where lumberjacks drink beer, and you ask them, mates, tell me how to create a good axe for you. Why would they bother? Why would they even give you any information? You're not one of them. Same goes with boxers. As far as I know, most of almost the best of the best sports equipment is built and created with the help of the sportsmen. So they actually wear the prototypes, they test the prototypes, they are the users, they are hired to be the users of the product. Oops. Yeah. So if you are the user of the product, there is very little information loss. You feel what's needed or comfy, implicit information isn't lost. And you get better feedback from people like you. It's quite obvious that people would treat you better if you're one of them. So coming back to the definition of quality. Quality is merely a degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfills requirement. So I would say that there is no quality when desires aren't understood. When you are building something for what you don't have enough information, you're just doing random stuff. We've all seen that many times when you build a feature, you bring it to the user, and the user says, yeah, okay, but it doesn't solve the problem well. It's not comfortable, it's not usable, the UX is bad, whatever. So you picture that, you imagined that this feature would solve the problem of the client, and yet he says it doesn't. That's mostly happening just because you are not the user of the product. So if we don't know and if we don't feel what needs to be done, then what are we doing? I have this good analogy that whenever I'm starting working on a feature or on a project, a software development project, I first need to fully understand and detail what's possible to detail, what problems I am about to solve. I need to understand what I'm doing first. And the origin of the term of the word dogfooding is rumored to be from this company called Can Pet Food Company, where the president would actually eat a can of dog food that is produced by the company at the annual shareholders meeting. He said that if I like this dog food, then chances are my dog will like it too. And I love animals. I feed lots of stray dogs. And when I buy cheap dog food, the cheapest one, they don't eat it. I guess the producers of that dog food didn't feed this dog food to their own dogs. They didn't care to actually check what they're doing. And then Apple, when they were trying to dominate the market with their word processing software in 1980, they had, in their own company, they had thousands of typewriters, the old tools you used to type stuff in. And Steve Jobs at that time said that if we are to produce a good word processor, we need to get rid of typewriters. We need to start using our own word processor for everything. And in 1980, he actually made this mandatory that no typewriters are to be present at Apple anymore. And this actually gave him huge success. Developers started using, and engineers started using their word processor, the Apple word processor. They suddenly found thousands of bugs. They suddenly found millions, not millions, okay, thousands of UX improvements to be done. They saw that they actually felt the product. They didn't have to go find the users and do the research with the users, do the focus groups, do A/B testing, do anything. They saw the issues with their own eyes. Then Microsoft followed. Microsoft were heavy users of their own products since the very beginning. I think it was mandatory till quite recently that if you work at Microsoft, you have to use Microsoft products for everything. I think it was the case. Gitlab also uses GitLab to build GitLab. So quite obviously, right? Why else would they? What other projects would they use for Git and other activities? And quite well-known company called 37 Signals. They actually started their business from this dogfooding perspective, I think. What they did, they built the products for themselves first. So they were the first users of their own products. Every single product they built, they started building for themselves, for their own good. And this actually made them sell the products they are building quite well. So big companies do follow dogfooding quite a lot. So as I've said, as I've explained, dogfooding helps with understanding and feeling of the requirements, expectations, desires, with understanding if you're building a good product, if your product is good, if your product is of good quality. But it also helps with innovation and problem solving. This is very interesting. Innovation, by the definition, is the introduction of something new. And problem solving is achieving a goal by overcoming obstacles. They are very similar. So if I am the user of a banking app, and if I'm building this app for myself first and for my mom, I would better imagine how the product could evolve. Because I know that my mom receives money from me. I send her money to help. And whenever I send it to her, I see our interaction. I understand, and being an engineer, I can invent better stuff. So being a user, I know the problems. And being an engineer, I have this good synergy of knowledges, of two areas of knowledge, an engineer and the domain knowledge. So being an engineer, I can come up with good ideas or crazy ideas or any ideas, good, but better than if I wasn't the user. So we can just stop guessing. We can stop doing as many A/B tests as most companies do. Like I've seen one fintech company, they had 10,000 A/B tests running at the same time. I'm not even sure their A/B test framework actually can produce enough separation between A/B tests so that A/B tests don't influence each other. I would say they would benefit a lot if they had dogfooding, if they actually were using, if their developers, product managers, designers, everywhere, if they were using the products they were building on a daily basis. I think they could innovate a lot. And another topic I want to discuss here is work alienation, originally defined by Marx, but I don't like his definition. He was talking about this class warfare, etc., about the socialist stuff. But in current psychology, there is this whole set of research discussing this problem of work alienation. Essentially, the problem is that we engineers are building code, and sometimes, if we don't use this code, sometimes we feel that what we're doing has no purpose or no value. We are just doing as we're told. We're just building code, running tests, delivering to production, having CI/CD, etc., etc. And as I've said, we are social human beings, and we spend at least 8 hours a day at work. I think we, and psychologists agree with me, that we need purpose in our work. We need to feel how our work, how our efforts change people's lives. If you are the lumberjack and you build an axe for yourself and for your peers, they will tell you, mate, the axe is great. Thank you. It's good. So but if you are a software developer who just builds code but you don't use it, the only feedback you have is just from your managers. And managers usually see the numbers, but the commercial success of the company doesn't necessarily has the root cause in how we do work. It has multiple factors influencing the commercial success. So studies in psychology say that work alienation, this feeling of having no purpose and no value in work, significantly reduces productivity, significantly increases stress, and therefore increases turnover. So people, when they don't feel purpose and value in their work, they leave more often and they leave quicker. But, yep.
Sorry, quick interruption. The audio quality has dropped off quite a bit. Did you maybe switch to the different device or something?
Let me just check. Hold on a second.
Yep. We cannot hear you right now.
And how about now? Hello, hello?
Yeah, I think it's better. Let's see.
Okay, let's see. So yes, studies show that when you feel no purpose and no value in what you're doing, you will have more stress, you will more likely leave the company, and of course you will have less productivity. But when you are using your own product, you see that you're doing good or bad. You actually see, you actually feel that you're doing good stuff or bad stuff. There is no way that you're going to have work alienation when you are the user of the product. And so, with all that said, to me, it sounds that every single company has to have dog fooding practice, dog fooding culture. But how do we start? I would say that it's always better to start like 37 Signals did. So they started building their products with the dog fooding in mind, that they were building the products for themselves. It's always harder to change the company later compared to if you do it right from the scratch. But if you are the manager, you can of course motivate your developers and your designers and everyone at your team to start using the product. When I used to work for Badoo, the dating app, the dating service in London, my wife was quite angry that I was using it because it is a dating app, but I still had to use it. Of course, I wasn't dating people, but I had to use it. I had to understand if the product is good or bad, if I can swipe left or right, essentially. And if you're not the manager, if you are a QA engineer or a developer, you can always start, as I say, from the bottom. You can always just start using the product. No one will ever prohibit you from using your product, unless it's a strange product. There are certain, let's say, darknet parts of the internet that people shouldn't be using, I think, but people shouldn't be building them in the first place. But anyway, no one will stop you from using your own product. So I highly advise everyone to find pride in what they're doing and start using the products they're building. So to summarize, dog fooding helps you better understand the desires of the user, better feel them as you are the user. You feel yourself quite well. It helps you better innovate and solve problems because you combine and have synergy in the areas of knowledge of an engineer and the user, the domain area. And you feel the value of your work. You are essentially proud of it if you're doing it right. If you're not doing it right, well, you can fix it then. And that is the end. Here's the QR code for the article on this topic I've written on our blog, and my Twitter handle, email, GitHub. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Shall I stop sharing?
You can, but let's ask for if there are any questions first.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a slide somebody wants you to flip back on.
Yeah.
So until there is another question, I have one. I've basically never worked on a product where I'm the target audience. And I always try a lot to emphasize and to understand the people who are using it, but there is always a very long process in the beginning where I'm like, when the project is already going on and I join the project, and there is a big time frame where I just don't know how the product works, and it's hard to get into that kind of thinking of this is what I am doing. It's always like the other people are using this and I have to test it. How do I don't know, get into the mindset of I'm the one who's doing it?
That's a good question. Thank you so much. I would say that, well, at least in my engineering manager experience,
Sorry,
always.
Quality is bad again somehow.
Oh, wow. Why the hell? Hold on. Let me just change.
Or am I just picky? I don't know.
Hold on. Let me do.
Oh, it's very low level. Yeah.
How about this? Good. Okay.
Yeah, a little
Change
more
microphone.
like quality-wise, a bit more tinny, but much more audible. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you for the question. When I work as an engineering manager, and when I hire and onboard new developers or QA engineers or designers, I always try to explain them the purpose of the product and to get them to use the product. So I would say that if your manager doesn't want you to use, doesn't give you enough time, doesn't give you enough guidance, doesn't provide you with all the credentials, let's say, and everything, I think he's doing a job that can be done a bit better, let's say. Because as I've said, that if you do not fully understand why certain tasks are done, why certain features are added, why certain bugs emerge, what is the overall experience that users have of the product, how they use it, why they use it, then you might be losing some valuable information. So I would say that from the managerial perspective, it's always good to motivate people to use it and to provide them with credentials, etc. From the individual perspective, it's quite hard, because what I see is that when new joiners are just onboarded, managers usually demand performance from the first day, from the first week, right? You have to fix bugs, you have to find bugs, you have to do this, you have to do that. I would even say that the first months are usually quite hard for everyone, because you have to learn a lot. And there is no silver bullet here. I think, like when I joined Case, I told my boss that I would have to spend a half a year to understand the product. He was like, "No, it's too much." I said, "No, yeah, it's all right. I have to understand the product, why it needs certain features, and maybe some features are not needed at all, etc." So the answer would be try using the product, but it will be hard because managers usually demand performance from the first week. And it's up to you to decide whether you want to understand it better or not, because you can start using the product in half a year when you've shown that you perform well. Then you can devote some of your time to actually start using it. For example, at Case, we have this rule that we are building the TMS, and we are using this TMS to build our TMS. So we don't have any other tools to do that. And if anyone sees Google spreadsheet or anything, it will show us that we failed at building the product and we need to improve it.
Thank you very much. For me, I think the most important part was basically telling people that figuring out how to use the product is part of doing the job, and not like it's not something you do on the side. It's like one of the core goals at the beginning. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a good question in the chat from Fernando. He says,
feel free to unmute yourself if you want.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks for the presentation. I really like it.
Thank you.
As I sent in the chat, I would like to ask you like how to avoid bias when doing dog fooding, considering that you could have like a completely different perspective than your real customers.
That's a perfect question. Thank you. Like if we don't have dog fooding, well, the usual way to avoid biases when doing product development is to gather focus groups, right? So we gather representative groups, a group of clients which will represent the majority of clients, the majority of paying clients, let's say. I would say that if the whole team can be considered, the whole team can be considered a good focus group. They're all different. So if everyone on the team uses the product, chances are that some or most bias will just go away. And additionally, there is a great tool
that can be used for overcoming the bias is a brainstorming session. You just gather as the team. You do some do crazy testing where they just try to break things, right? But you can just do crazy using. You can do the investigation of how your product is used on a daily basis. Like you show your peers how you wire the money in your fintech app if you're building the fintech. They show what they do in the app. Maybe they chat to friends in a fintech app. Who knows? Maybe they say they have something else. Everyone has their own pattern of usage. And if you then feel that, let's say you came up with a few features that would be good for the product, you build them, and then you see in the statistics that they're not used enough. Then you need to think, maybe you could invite real users to show you how they use it. Maybe you are still biased. Maybe your group is biased. Let's say I worked for one bank and I earned quite a good amount of money. My salary was quite big, and I never seen a bug that occurred to many students where they had microloans. I never had them. And none of my developers had this microloan feature enabled. They didn't need it. And this feature was quite big for the students. So we invited the students, we asked them, when are you applying for the microloan? Before the stipend rate money arriving, like we invited them to explain us how they use it. So yeah, there is a limitation to that, of course, but you're getting just one step closer to the client with Dogfooding. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the answer.
Any more questions?
No, but I could just confirm it actually. So I see it also quite often that a lot of developers or testers also just starting to doing something without really understand actually what is the purpose of it actually. So and then they're always complaining that they have to throw their work away. And I say, yeah, because it doesn't spend the 5 minutes at the beginning to think about what is that feature actually about, especially something if it's not something intuitive. Yeah? Like, I don't know, there's some things which is quite normal, like you want to buy something in a web shop or something, this is quite simple. But like Vitaly was mentioned, like, you know, if you want some special kind of loan or something with some special rates, might be getting difficult. Or I'm working on a stock market, you know, which is also really complicated sometimes, and nobody can really follow it actually, yeah. But if you don't think about what the customer wants and how's the workflow, then you're just producing some work. You're just working on it, yeah, but the chance is really, really high that you're just producing something which has no value actually at the end.
That's very true. And I would add here that there is still this misconception in management, which is quite popular still, that we need very strict specialization. Like we have business domain area experts, and we have developers, and business domain area experts will tell something to developers, and then developer will execute. Well, yes, it might work, but the information will be lost. And if developers actually sit and work with those business area, whatever, they will understand much better the issues and the problems.
Another thing, when you're, I don't know, it just popped into my mind before I was working for a banking area actually, it's also what is really value is like doing shadowing, you know, go to the users of the tool, get different roles like with cashiers, people who worked in the back end, accounting, you know, sitting with them, looking over the shoulder, and it's also really helpful by finding requirements like easy workflows which can be improved, but they don't know it because they don't understand tech actually, yeah, and you doesn't notice it before because it doesn't know the workflows. So really sitting together is also really helpful, especially if it's something specialized which you might not using in a normal life. Yeah.
There are, of course, limitations sometimes. Like if you are lucky to be building medical equipment, some, let's say, surgical robots, you must know a lot about surgical operations, but chances are you won't be the surgical specialist who does the operation, right? So in this case, you can't have Dogfooding, but as you've said, you can shadow the person. You can actually see how they operate. You can actually see maybe something is not comfortable enough. And this concept of pleasantry or comfort is very important. If you choose, I don't know, one phone over the other phone, chances are you're choosing it for your own perception of comfort rather than for technological advancements. In most cases, like Apple is ridiculously popular, and technologically they are a few steps behind Samsung in most cases, and yet they are selling much more, right? Because people perceive them as more comfortable.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anything else to add? Otherwise, maybe hand it over to Aurelian.
Yes, let's hand it. Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Vitaly. I like the metaphor Apple, Samsung.
Thank you.
Okay, let me share screen. Where is that? Okay. Not sure you see. Do you see the presentation?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, your screen is paused. Okay, wait a sec. Let's do this. Okay. What about, yeah, so your screen is paused. Resume share. Never got that.
There we go.
Okay. Okay.
Good.
Basically, until I was going on that page, it was not activated. Okay. Okay, so thanks guys, and a big thank you to Vitaly for his great presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
Next month, we will receive a very known face, which is Nikolai, which will let us know about in this moment, he is very fancy of ChatGPT if you follow him on the social networks. So he will talk about ChatGPT on the web development from concept to launch. I really recommend to attend if you are available, because it will be really nice.
Nice, thank you.
That's it, guys. If you are interested in participating as a speaker, reach out on our website. And in the other case, have a nice day, evening, or afternoon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for hosting me and for listening to me. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Vitaly.
Thank you.
Bye.